I like how you talked about the Thunder being a team where you could kind of see the development coming along. And then now we get to see them actually be in like that upper echelon of the NBA. Like that is a team that right off the bat, that defense is insane. Like they are locking everybody down. They have the best defense in the league by almost over 10 points per 100 possessions. And Chet Holmgren is leading the league with 3.1 blocks per game and total blocks. And all of a sudden, the Victor Wembanyama is carving out the next, whatever it is, decade of Defensive Player of the Year awards.
That's what I was waiting
is starting to look a little. Wemby's off to a great start too. Don't get me wrong. He's struggling a little bit shooting the ball, but he's still off to a great start defensively. Chet Holmgren is clearly inserting himself into that conversation of everybody being you and me included, who is handing Wemby the next decade's worth of DPOYs. Chet Holmgren is saying, well, hold that thought because I am the anchor of the best defense in the league. I'm leading the league in blocks, and he can protect the rim as well as anybody in the NBA. That OKC team, they are off to an even better start than you could imagine, and that's coming from a team that was projected to win the Western Conference. They're 7-0 at the time of recording, and they don't look like they're slowing down anytime soon. They got plenty of depth, and everything happens around Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Really impressed with what I've seen with them.
Yeah, and it's only going to get better. Like Isaiah Hartenstein hasn't even suited up yet, hasn't stepped on the court yet. And I mentioned this too last week, but Alex Caruso has another level I'm sure he can tap into once he gets more comfortable in their situation. And Chet, for me, statement on opening night, the blocks he had on Jokic, and we talk so much about his frame and how it's good luck, man. You're going to get pushed around in the NBA. He makes up for it, and I think he don't necessarily. He's a reminder that you don't necessarily have to have muscle to have strength, and he holds his own. It's going to be much easier for him now when he has a big guy next to him in Hardenstein. But he's shown that he hasn't even really needed it just yet as far as that goes. So credit to him, and making it quite. And they held Wemby to 6 points. So that'll be another interesting wrinkle, and maybe it'll be a fun thing where Defensive Player of the Year kind of becomes something that is just going back and forth between those guys. And Wemby and Chet have interesting ways that they approach or don't approach that rivalry, but them being peers and being similar physically, that they're going to be compared, linked, whatever, throughout the majority of their career. Before we wrap up, since we're talking about Wemby, I'm curious, do you think he shoots too many threes? He talked about it last night. They blew like a 27-point lead at the Intuit Dome, and he said, "I'm gonna keep shooting. This part of my game." He's 7'4". He shoots a lot of threes. I can look up and see how many he takes a game. But in your opinion,
I'm already ahead.
He thinks maybe a little too many.
He does spend a lot of time out on the perimeter, and like Greg Popovich talked about that.
7.1 per game.
Yeah, he's already taken 53. He's only made 11 of them. He's shooting 22% from three. It's not a great conversion rate. And, Greg Popovich talked about that. Also, a quick shout out to Greg Popovich. Hopefully he's doing well. Health-wise, they're going to have Mitch Johnson step in as an interim head coach as Greg Popovich is going through some health issues at the moment. But, he talked about how that's Wemby's position. Like, he's a wing. He's not necessarily like a traditional big man, and that's the way that they intend to use him. And, yes, okay, he's 7'4". Maybe he should just park his ass in the dunker spot and just be ready to catch lobs from Chris Paul. Like, maybe that is the most efficient way to score, but also part of what makes him so unique is that he can handle the ball. He can create his own shot. He can shoot from the perimeter, whether his percentages show it or not. Does he shoot too many threes? The answer is probably yes, because you're 7'4". You should not be shooting 7 threes a game. But at the same time, like, it is a way to help draw the defense out. It is a way to help make scoring easier in the paint for himself, because even though he's not making them, teams still charging out at him because they know he's capable of doing it. I think there is going to be kind of like a finding his balance of like, okay, how many is too many versus like how many of my looks should come from right around the rim. And like, I want to use Anthony Davis as an example kind of, but he's gone almost completely away from shooting threes. I know JJ Redick wants him to shoot more threes this season than he has in the past, but like, over the last couple of years, like Pelicans Anthony Davis versus like early stages Lakers Anthony Davis, like he completely stopped shooting threes. It's almost like he had the yips from 3-point range. But like, there's probably a balance somewhere in there of like, okay, here's where I can get to my spots in and around the paint, which is pretty much anywhere, just as we've already seen, just lob the ball anywhere. He's going to find a way to put it down. But also like, knowing that you can kind of help yourself and make scoring inside easier by extending out to the 3-point line and shooting threes, just so people know that they have to contest you out there. So, it's all going to be a part of the learning process for Wemby. Right now, he's trying to figure out a way to be someone who can carry that team and get them to the playoffs the way that, he definitely has expectations of himself for this season. But I'm curious to see where and when he finds that balance of like, how many shots should I be taking around the rim versus how many shots I should be taking from the outside.
Yeah, I don't want to sound like a grumpy old guy. I don't have a problem with him taking the threes. I know it's an important part, and that's today's game, and he can shoot threes. Obviously, shooting 22% from deep to start the season isn't indicative of somebody who can shoot threes. And that's kind of where I stand. Let the game come to you. No need to continue to force it. I understand not getting discouraged and, thinking the next one's going to go in. But a lot of times you hear about guys who are shooters or perceived shooters. Sometimes you just need to see the ball go through the net. So maybe it is playing inside out. Maybe it is, like you said, finding what that balance looks like. And I think that's what having a guy like Chris Paul on the court with you allows you to do a little bit. I'm sure if he's taking too many and it gets frustrating, Chris Paul will let him know that he's taking too many threes and get on the block, big fellow, or roll to the rim. He had some crazy lobs, had a crazy lob, a crazy sequence, block shot into like an insane lob. Just like Ja, it's something that Vic does, once per game that makes you think like, okay, maybe this dude really, really is an alien.